I stared at my phone, reading the latest family group chat message from my sister-in-law, Melissa. Can't wait for our annual spring festival next weekend. Just a reminder, it's an intimate family gathering. We want to keep our traditions pure. My heart sank as I watched the responses flood in. Cheerful emojis from cousins, excited replies from aunts and uncles, and my mother-in-law's enthusiastic wouldn't miss it. Everyone was invited. Everyone except us. My name is Maya, and for the past 5 years, I've watched my sister-in-law systematically exclude my family from every cultural celebration. Her reasoning? My mixed heritage would confuse the children about their true culture. Maybe we should just show up, my husband Dan suggested, looking over my shoulder at the messages. But we both knew that would only make things worse. Last time we tried that, Melissa made a scene about gate crashers ruining the authentic experience. The irony wasn't lost on me. The spring festival she was so protective of originated from a celebration of unity and new beginnings. Yet here she was using it to draw lines between family members. Mama, did Aunt Melissa say no again? My daughter Lily's voice pulled me from my thoughts. At 8 years old, she was already too familiar with rejection. Her beautiful face, a perfect blend of her father's European features and my South Asian heritage, reflected the hurt I felt. "It's okay, sweetie," I said, pulling her close. "We'll have our own celebration." But this year felt different. Maybe it was the way Lily's eyes lingered on photos of her cousins celebrating together, or how my mother-in-law, Martha, had started making excuses for Melissa's behavior. She's just trying to preserve our heritage, dear. You understand, don't you? No, I didn't understand, and I was tired of pretending I did. That evening, as I prepared dinner, an idea began to take shape. Our small town had always lacked cultural events, despite having a surprisingly diverse population. What if, instead of fighting for a place at Melissa's exclusive table, we created something bigger? Something that celebrated not just one culture, but all of them. I called my friend Sophia, who ran the local community center. "A multicultural festival," she said, immediately excited. "Maya, that's brilliant. We've been looking for something to bring people together." Over the next few days, the idea grew. Sophia connected me with other community members who'd felt similarly isolated. There was Mrs. Patel from the Indian grocery store, who'd been trying to organize cultural dance classes. Mr. Chen from the Asian market, whose New Year celebrations always drew crowds but lacked proper venue space. And Sarah, a local teacher who'd been pushing for more cultural education in schools. We met at my house, spreading ideas across my dining room table. What if we combined everything? Sarah suggested food, dance, music, art. Show people how beautiful it is when cultures come together. The energy in the room was electric. For the first time in years, I felt like I was part of something bigger than myself. This wasn't about proving anything to Melissa anymore. It was about creating the kind of world I wanted Lily to grow up in. Word spread quickly in our small town. People started reaching out, offering to help. The local newspaper ran a story about our plans. Even the mayor expressed interest, seeing an opportunity to promote unity in the community. Of course, news eventually reached my in-laws. I was at the grocery store when I ran into Martha, my mother-in-law. Her face was pinched with concern. "Maya, dear," she began, her voice low. "Melissa is quite upset. She feels you're trying to overshadow her spring festival." I took a deep breath, remembering all the times I'd stayed quiet to keep the peace. Not this time. "Martha, this isn't about Melissa. This is about building bridges, not walls. Your grandchildren deserve to know all parts of their heritage, not just the ones Melissa approves of. But tradition," she started, "is meant to bring people together, not tear them apart." I finished. "You're welcome to come see for yourself. Everyone is." As I walked away, I felt lighter. Years of trying to fit into Melissa's narrow view of family had weighed me down. Now, watching our festival take shape, I realized we weren't just planning an event. We were creating a new tradition. The day we announced the date of our Cultural Unity Festival, my phone buzzed with a message from Melissa. "How dare you schedule this the same weekend as our spring festival? You're trying to destroy our family traditions." I looked at the calendar. Our event was actually the following weekend. I could have pointed out her mistake, but what was the point? Instead, I focused on the growing list of people excited to be part of something new. Each day brought more support. Local businesses offered sponsorship. Artists volunteered to perform. Families signed up to share their traditional foods and crafts. Even Dan's cousins, usually firmly in Melissa's camp, reached out asking how they could help. "Mama, can I help teach the kids some dance moves?" Lily asked one evening, practicing her classical Indian dance in our living room. Her face glowed with pride, no longer worried about fitting in or being too different. "Of course you can, sweetheart," I replied, watching her twirl. This was why we were doing this. Not for revenge, not to prove a point, but to create a space where children like Lily could celebrate all parts of who they are. As the festival drew closer, I couldn't help but wonder how it would all turn out. Would people really come? Would it make any difference in how our family saw us? But looking at Lily's excited face as she helped make decorations, I knew it didn't matter. We'd already won by refusing to let anyone make us feel ashamed of who we are. The week before our Cultural Unity Festival was a whirlwind of activity. Our house had become festival headquarters, with volunteers streaming in and out, carrying decorations, checking lists, and finalizing performances. The energy was infectious. Even our typically quiet street buzzed with anticipation. I was reviewing the food vendor layout when my phone rang. It was Martha again. "Maya, I need to talk to you about something." Her voice sounded different, less certain than usual. "Some of the family, well, they want to come to your festival." My heart skipped a beat. "They're welcome to," I said carefully. "Everyone is. It's just Melissa is very upset. She's threatening to cancel the spring festival entirely if people choose your event over hers." Martha sighed deeply. "She says we're betraying our heritage." I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar weight of family drama threatening to overshadow everything we'd worked for. "Martha, this festival isn't about taking sides. It's about bringing people together. Maybe if Melissa came, she'd understand that." "I don't know, dear," Martha replied, but I could hear the curiosity in her voice. "The photos in the newspaper did look lovely, and Sarah told me about all the activities you've planned for the children." After we hung up, I found Dan in the garage, painting welcome signs in different languages. "Your mom called," I told him, helping him straighten a banner. "Sounds like the family is interested in coming." "All of them?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Well, except Melissa. She's still," I trailed off, not wanting to say, "being Melissa." Dan put down his paintbrush and pulled me into a hug. "Hey, remember what you told me when we started this? It's not about them anymore. Look at what you've created." He was right. Outside, I could see Lily teaching her friends the dance steps she'd been practicing. Mrs. Patel's daughter was showing them how to adjust their hand positions, while Mr. Chen's son added some contemporary moves to their routine. They were laughing, creating something new together, unbothered by the artificial boundaries adults so often created. 2 days before the festival, disaster struck. Our main venue, the community center, had a pipe burst. Sophia called me in tears. "The repairs won't be done in time." "What are we going to do?" I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by festival plans, feeling the panic rise. We had over 400 people planning to attend. Vendors had ordered food. Performers had practiced for weeks. We couldn't just cancel. That's when I heard a knock at the door. It was Mrs. Chen, Mr. Chen's wife, who rarely spoke but always seemed to know when help was needed. Behind her stood several other community members. "We heard about the community center," she said softly. "We want to help. My husband's warehouse, it's big, clean, and empty right now. We can use it." Before I could process the offer, others chimed in. "My son's construction company can help set up temporary flooring," one woman offered. "We have industrial fans for ventilation," said another. "My catering company has spare tables and chairs," a third volunteered. Within hours, our crisis had turned into something beautiful. The warehouse transformation began immediately, with community members working together like they'd been doing it for years. Even the mayor stopped by, bringing city maintenance workers to help with the setup. That evening, exhausted but grateful, I checked my phone and found a message from my niece, Melissa's daughter. "Aunt Maya, is it okay if I still come? Mom says I can't, but Dad says he'll bring me. I really want to see Lily dance." I showed the message to Dan, who smiled. "Think this might be the beginning of a change?" "Maybe," I said, thinking of all the walls that had already come down in the past few weeks. "Or maybe it's just people finally choosing to see what was always there." The day before the festival, our transformed warehouse looked magical. Strings of lights crisscrossed the ceiling. Colorful banners representing different cultures hung from the walls, and the smell of various cuisines being prepped filled the air. The performance area was set up, complete with professional sound equipment donated by a local music store. As I stood there, taking it all in, Sophia rushed over with news. Maya, you won't believe this. The registrations just hit 500. We had to start a waiting list. 500 people. In our small town, that was nearly a tenth of the population, all coming together to celebrate our differences and similarities. That night, as I helped Lily lay out her costume for tomorrow's performance, she asked me something that made my heart swell. Mama, do you think next year we can teach Aunt Melissa's kids some of our dances too? Maybe, sweetheart, I replied, smoothing her dress. Sometimes people just need time to open their hearts. Looking at my daughter's hopeful face, I realized that while Melissa's exclusion had hurt, it had also led us here, to creating something far more meaningful than we could have imagined. Sometimes the best traditions start not with rigid rules about who belongs, but with an open door and a simple invitation to join in. As I fell asleep that night, I wondered who would actually show up tomorrow, and whether our family would choose unity over division. But looking at everything we'd already accomplished, I knew that either way, we'd already succeeded in creating something beautiful. The morning of the Cultural Unity Festival dawned bright and clear. I arrived at the warehouse early, my heart racing with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Already, vendors were setting up their stalls, the air filling with the mingled aromas of dishes from around the world. Maya, Sophia called out, rushing over with her clipboard. The line outside, you need to see this. I followed her to the entrance and froze. The line stretched around the block. Families of all backgrounds, dressed in both traditional outfits and casual wear, chatting excitedly as they waited. Among them, I spotted familiar faces, Dan's cousins, some of our nieces and nephews, and even a few of Melissa's closest friends. Then I saw her, Martha, my mother-in-law, standing uncertainly near the entrance, wearing the traditional dress she usually reserved for family festivals. When she caught my eye, she hurried over. I hope it's all right that I came early, she said, twisting her hands. I thought perhaps you could use some help. Before I could respond, Lily came running up. Grandma, you came, she threw herself into Martha's arms. Want to see my dance costume, and Mama made your favorite dumplings, the ones you taught her. Martha's eyes welled up. You still make those. Every family recipe matters, I said softly, even when we're not invited to share them. The festival opened with a bang, literally as the local Chinese drum ensemble began their performance. The warehouse transformed into a vibrant marketplace of culture and connection. Children darted between stalls, collecting stamps in their passport books. Elderly community members taught traditional crafts to eager learners. The performance area stayed packed as different groups shared their music and dance. Midway through the morning, during Lily's dance performance, I noticed more familiar faces in the crowd. Dan's entire extended family had arrived, including aunts and uncles who hadn't spoken to us in years. They watched, mesmerized, as their grandnieces and nephews performed a fusion dance that blended classical Indian moves with contemporary steps. Did you teach them all this? One of Dan's aunts asked me, gesturing to the children. They taught each other, I replied. That's the beauty of it. The afternoon brought an unexpected moment. I was helping at the henna station when I heard a familiar voice. Could I get one too? It was Melissa's daughter, Emma, with her father. She wouldn't meet my eyes, but her voice was eager. Mom doesn't know we're here, she whispered. But I saw the videos online of everyone practicing, and, of course you can, I said, patting the chair beside me. And maybe you can teach me some of your spring festival dances sometime. As I drew the henna pattern on her hand, I told her stories about her father's childhood, about the festivals I grew up with, about how traditions grow stronger when shared. Her father watched, something softening in his expression. The festival's closing ceremony was a community dinner, hundreds of people seated at long tables, sharing dishes from every culture represented. Martha sat next to me, her plate piled with a colorful mixture of foods. I've been so foolish, she said suddenly, putting down her fork. All these years, watching Melissa push you away, telling myself it was about preserving tradition. I was wrong. This, she gestured around at the laughing, chatting crowd, this is what tradition should be. Just then, my phone buzzed with a message from Melissa. Mom told me how many people came, said it was beautiful. Maybe next year we could talk about combining the spring festival with your event. I showed the message to Dan, who squeezed my hand. We both knew it wasn't a full apology, but it was a start, a crack in the wall she built. As the evening wound down, I stood on the small stage for a final thank you, looking out at the crowd, at the children still dancing together, the elderly couples sharing stories, the teenagers teaching each other phrases in different languages. I felt tears in my eyes. When we started planning this festival, I said, some people thought we were trying to replace old traditions with new ones. But that's not what happened here. Today, we didn't erase anyone's culture. We celebrated all of them. We showed our children that there's room for everyone's stories, everyone's heritage, everyone's love. The applause that followed wasn't just for me or the festival. It was for every person who had helped create this moment, who had chosen to open their hearts to something new. Later that night, as we cleaned up, Lily tugged on my sleeve. Mama, Emma asked if I could teach her dance class at her house next week. Can I? I hugged her close, remembering the scared little girl who used to cry about being different. Of course you can, sweetheart. That's how new traditions begin. And looking around at our transformed warehouse, at the lingering evidence of a day filled with joy and connection, I knew she was right. Sometimes the best traditions aren't the ones we inherit, but the ones we create together, with open hearts and open doors.